The auction room smelled like rust and fear. Metal walls echoed with the sound of chains. Aliens of all shapes stood in cages, silent and broken. Some cried, some stared into nothing. Most had already accepted their fate. At the far end, a young alien woman knelt in a cage. Her skin was a soft silver blue, glowing slightly in the dim light. Her long white hair was tangled and dirty. She looked weak, tired, and lost. A number was burned onto her arm, 347B. The auctioneer, a fat creature with yellow eyes, shouted loudly, "Next slave, 347B. Young, healthy, mine-ready, starting price, 1 credit." The room burst into laughter. 1 credit? Is she even worth that? A buyer joked, "She looks half dead already." Another said, "No one raised their hand." No one wanted her. She was too weak, too thin, too empty. Then, from the back, a voice spoke quietly. "I'll take her." Heads turned. A human stepped forward. He wore an old coat and dusty boots. A strange device blinked on his wrist, but no one noticed it yet. The crowd laughed again. A human. Buying that trash? Why waste a credit on her? The auctioneer looked confused, but tapped his screen. Sold. To the human, for 1 credit, the guards dragged her out roughly. She didn't fight. She had no strength left. They dropped her at the human's feet like a broken tool. He knelt beside her, looked into her eyes. "You're free now," he whispered. She didn't answer. She didn't believe him. He offered her water. Her hands shook as she drank. "No one's free here," she said softly. He smiled. "Just a little. We'll see about that." They walked out together. The guards didn't care. 1 credit, 1 useless girl, 1 foolish human outside the auction. The desert sun burned bright. The wind was sharp with dust and sand. They walked toward the mining camp. Her legs wobbled, but she didn't fall. The human didn't speak much. He watched her carefully, quietly. "Why did you buy me?" she asked at last. He didn't answer. Not right away. Then he said, "Because you were still breathing, and because no one else did." She looked at him, trying to understand. Humans were rare on this planet. Most worked for credits. Food or parts. Kindness didn't exist here. When they reached the mine gates, the scanner beeped. New workers. A guard asked. The human nodded. Registration complete, the machine said. They were led to the tunnels. Dark, hot, filled with smoke. Other workers didn't speak, just worked. Machines roared in the background. Every hour, someone collapsed. The dead were dragged out like trash. The human and the alien woman were assigned the same zone. They worked side by side. She struggled with the tools. Her body was weak. He helped without speaking. Slowly, her strength returned. She began to wonder, who was this human? Why was he different? One night, while resting in a corner, she saw him talking, but he wasn't talking to her. He was whispering into his wrist device. There was no voice replying, but lights blinked on the screen. She closed her eyes, pretending to sleep, but her heart beat faster. Was he hiding something? Or someone? Later, while the human slept, she crept closer. She looked at the device. It was old, but active. Suddenly, a message flashed on the screen. Subject located. Confirmed match, begin phase 2, she gasped. Stepped back. What did that mean? Was she a subject? What was phase 2? The human opened his eyes slowly. He wasn't really sleeping. You saw that, didn't you? He said quietly. She nodded, unsure if she should run or stay. I'm not your enemy, he said, sitting up. Then who are you? She asked. He didn't smile this time. He looked tired, serious. I'm here to break the system, he said. And I think you're the key. The lights in the tunnel flickered. Far away, a siren wailed. The mine was never quiet. But tonight, something had changed. Something had started. And the girl who was sold for 1 credit was about to change everything. Asterisk, the dust storm came before sunrise. It howled across the desert like a wounded beast. Sand slammed into the walls. Of mine 1 foray, and inside, deep underground, something else was moving. An old drone flew through the tunnel, scanning the workers. It hovered for a moment above the alien woman. Its red light blinked once, paused, then blinked faster, but no one noticed. Not yet. Lyra sat alone in the eating zone, holding her metal cup. Her hands were still sore from digging. Her back ached. But her mind was more tired than her body. Across from her, the human Rain was silent. He stared into the distance like he was watching something no one else could see. His wrist device was hidden again. But she could feel it. It wasn't just a tool, it was a key. She leaned forward, whispering, "What's phase 2?" Rain looked at her slowly. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," he said. "Try me." She replied. He sighed, checked over his shoulder, then leaned in. "This mine isn't just digging rock. It's sitting on something much older, something your people left behind." "My people are dead," she said bitterly. "Not all of them," Rain said. "You're still breathing," she wanted to argue, but before she could speak, a loud siren screamed through the tunnels. All lights turned red, then flickered off. Only emergency lights remained. A voice shouted through the speakers, "Security. Lockdown unauthorized scan detected." Rain jumped to his feet, grabbed her hand. "Come on," she pulled back. "What's happening?" "They found you," he said. "Or something inside you." They ran, dodging guards. Slipping into a side tunnel, the deeper levels were not on the map. No workers came here. Only old machines, rust, and darkness lived in these halls. "Where are we going?" she asked. "There's a control room," he said, "hidden before this mine was built. I need to show you something." As they moved through the forgotten halls, strange patterns appeared on the walls, symbols glowing faintly, same color as her skin. She touched one. It pulsed under her fingers. Alive. "What is this place?" She whispered. "It's yours," Rain said. Or it was. They entered a wide chamber. In the center was a metal sphere floating above the ground. Wires ran from it into the walls like roots of a dead tree. Rain walked up and tapped his wrist device. The sphere opened, revealing a small console. "Put your hand here," he told her. She hesitated. "Why?" To wake it up, she placed her hand on the console. It was cold at first, then warm, then light. A beam shot up from the floor, scanning her body. A voice spoke from nowhere. "Welcome, Varelian signature detected." Initiating system wake. The chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Machines that hadn't moved in centuries came to life. Rain looked at her with awe. "I was right," he whispered. "You're not just a survivor. You're connected to something powerful." She stepped back, afraid. "I don't want power." She said, "I just want to be free." "You can't be free until the system breaks," he said. "And it starts with you." Suddenly, the wall burst open. 3 guards stepped in with shock rifles, hands up. One shouted, "No sudden moves." Lyra froze. Rain raised his hand slowly. But his wrist device blinked twice. "Execute escape protocol," he said calmly, before the guards could react. The floor under them opened. They fell with a scream. Into darkness, the floor closed again like nothing happened. Lyra stared in shock. "You killed them?" "No," he said. "Just move them somewhere safe, for now." She turned back to the console. The screen now showed a map, not of the mine, but of a ship, hidden under the rock layers, buried, waiting, sleeping. "That ship belongs to your people," Rain said. "It's under the deepest part of the mine. We need to reach it." "Why me?" she asked. "Why not just take it yourself?" He looked her in the eye. "Because I'm not the one it will listen to. It was made for a queen." The lights flickered again. More guards would come. The system was waking up, and the mine was running out of time. Lyra looked at the map, at Rain, at her own glowing hand. She had a choice. And this time, she wasn't going to stay silent. The mine was no longer silent. It breathed, it trembled, it whispered in voices no one had heard for centuries. The old systems were waking up, and deep below, something was listening. Lyra couldn't sleep that cycle. She sat alone in a dark corner of Tunnel C. The map from the ancient console burned in her memory. A ship, hidden far below the mine, waiting for her. Why her? Why now? Rain had gone to check the control node again. He said they had to move soon, before the warden traced the power spikes. But Lyra's mind wasn't on danger. It was on the words the machine had said. Varelian's signature confirmed. System wake in progress. She had no memory of being royal. No crown, no throne. Just pain, chains, betrayal, and darkness. Could machines make mistakes? Footsteps approached from behind. She stood quickly, ready to run, but it was Rain, carrying something wrapped in cloth. "What is that?" she asked. He sat beside her, unwrapping it slowly. Inside was a small cube, metal, glowing, pulsing. "Like a heart. This," he said, "is a Varelian data core." "Where did you get it?" she asked. He smiled slightly. "Let's just say I stole it from the wrong empire." Lyra stepped back, nervous. "Why bring it here?" "Because it's yours," Rain said. "Only you can unlock it." He placed it in front of her. It clicked, rotated, and began to hum. Soft blue light poured from its surface. Then, a voice, soft, melodic, female, Princess Lyra of House. "And Ciri, your path has returned. You are not forgotten." Lyra shook her head, confused. "I don't understand this. I'm not royalty. I'm not anyone." The cube projected an image, a memory, a child, silver blue skin, laughing. In a golden hall, a woman with the same white hair as Lyra. She bent down and kissed the child's forehead. "Is that my mother?" Lyra whispered. Rain nodded slowly. "The data core holds what was left of your legacy. They hid you before the war. They lost the battle. But they saved you." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes. She had no words, only pieces of a life stolen from her. "Why are you helping me?" She asked Rain. "You're human. You could have sold me like the others." Rain looked away, then answered quietly. "My people didn't start this war, but we're part of it now. The ones who rule this galaxy don't fear power. They fear hope." Lyra touched the cube again. Another projection appeared, a map of the ship below, but this time, new symbols lit up. A sequence, a lock, a hidden protocol. "What is that?" she asked. Rain leaned closer, eyes wide. "It's a command code, a failsafe." The voice from the cube spoke again. "To restore the throne, the ship must rise. But only the blood of Enseri may awaken its heart before they could." "Speak again." A loud crash echoed through the tunnel. Lights turned red. Sirens blared. "Security breach," the system voice said. "Unregistered technology detected. They found us," Rain said sharply. "Grab the cube." They ran, twisting through forgotten paths Rain had mapped himself. Guards chased from behind. But the tunnels bent strangely. Doors closed when Lyra passed opened when Rain whispered codes. It was like the mine itself was helping them now. They reached a dead end. No exit, no escape. "Now what?" Lyra asked, breathing hard. Rain turned to her. "Place your hand on the wall." "What?" "Do it. Trust me." She pressed her hand to the metal. It pulsed once, then the wall dissolved into light. Revealing a lift, they stepped in. It dropped fast. Down, down. Deeper than she knew the mine even reached. When it stopped, doors opened. To a chamber glowing with blue fire, a massive circular room. And in the center, a heart-shaped engine, dark, waiting. "This is the core of the ship," Rain said. It was buried here when your people fell. The Empire thought it was. Destroyed, but it slept. Lyra stepped forward. The engine began to glow. It knew her. It remembered. Heartlock protocol accepted. The chamber said, initiating primary restart. Energy pulsed through the room. The floor vibrated. The air felt alive. Rain looked at her, eyes shining. You just woke up the most powerful relic in this sector. Now, he said, let's take back what they stole. And far above, alarms screamed louder, because something ancient was rising, and this time, it had a name. Asterisk. The silence before the alarm felt heavier than any sound. Lyra stood in the glowing chamber, her hands still warm from touching the ancient ship's heart. The engine pulsed behind. Her like a sleeping god returning to life. She turned to Rain, her voice shaking. What happens now? Rain looked at the walls around them, now lit with energy flowing through hidden lines. Now, he said, we wake the rest, but they didn't have time above them. Boots thundered across metal floors. Guards were coming, and this time, they knew what they were hunting. Rain reached into his coat, pulled out a small black sphere. Smoke pulse, he said. Tossing it toward the lift shaft, buys us 90 seconds. Smoke filled the air as the lift doors hissed open. Shouts echoed down the shaft, followed by pulse rifles charging up. Lyra looked around, panic rising. We're trapped, no? Rain said calmly, we're ready. He tapped a command into his wrist device. The floor beneath him trembled. Again, behind the heart engine, a wall opened, revealing a dark tunnel. I mapped this passage from the ship's memory, he said. It leads to Sector Delta, the prisoner zone. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You want to go back there? Yes, he said, because that's where the fight begins. They ran through the tunnel. Light following their steps, the ship responded to Lyra's presence like it had been waiting just for her. Doors slid open. Lights blinked in rhythm with her heartbeat. She was still scared, still unsure, but she wasn't alone anymore. Back in Sector Delta, prisoners were lined up for roll call. Most stood with their heads down, defeated, exhausted, broken. The warden, a tall, gray-skinned creature in armor, paced between them. He liked silence. He liked control. Then the ground shook. Lights flickered. Alarms buzzed. And from the shadows came two figures covered in dust and glowing blue light. Stop them. The warden shouted. Guards raised their rifles. But the moment Lyra stepped forward, every screen in the room went black. Then the Varelian symbol appeared, a star with two wings, glowing in the dark. A deep voice echoed from the walls. This facility is compromised. Control returning to House Ansari. The prisoners looked up, confused, afraid. Lyra stepped onto a high platform, her voice louder than she thought it could be. My name is Lyra, she said. You don't know me. But I know what you've suffered. I was sold for 1 credit like I was nothing. But I am something. And so are you. The warden laughed, aiming his rifle at her. You're just another slave pretending to matter. No. Rain said, stepping in front of her. She's the last Varelian queen. Gasps rose from the prisoners. Guards hesitated, unsure what to believe. Lyra raised her hand. And the walls behind her responded. Restraints clicked open. The chains began to fall. The warden fired. Rain pushed Lyra aside and took the shot in the shoulder. He dropped blood, dark on his shirt. Lyra screamed, something inside her bursting free. The lights exploded into pure blue. A wave of force hit the guards, slamming them against walls, disabling weapons. The ship's AI reacted to her scream like a command. Defense mode activated, the voice said. Neutralizing hostile units. The prisoners stared in awe. Lyra knelt beside Rain, hands glowing. Pressing against his wound, he coughed, smiled. Weakly, didn't think you cared. Shut up, she whispered, holding back tears. The ship's energy flowed into him, sealing the burn slowly. He wasn't healed, but he was alive. And alive was enough. The prisoners slowly began to move toward her. One stepped forward, a tall insectoid alien with broken cuffs. "What do we do now?" he asked. Lyra stood, her voice steady. "You fight?" The warden tried to rise, tried to speak. Lyra didn't let him. She looked into his eyes and said, "You don't get to control us anymore." Then turned to the others. "Anyone who wants freedom, follow me." Rain pulled himself up, wincing. "You just started a war," he said. "No." She replied, "I just ended the silence," and deep beneath the surface. The ship continued to awaken, one system at a time, one memory at a time. It remembered its queen, and it was ready to rise. Far beneath the mines, where no footsteps had touched in 1,000 years. The ship stirred in its stone cradle. It breathed in silence, surrounded by darkness and forgotten power. The ship did not wake with fire. It woke with memory. Above, Lyra stood in the access chamber, her hands still glowing faint blue. Dozens of freed prisoners stood behind her, watching the walls pulse with ancient life. No one spoke, even Rain, bandaged but standing, seemed lost in the silence. Lyra stepped forward to the center platform, where the heart engine spun slowly. It rose from the floor like a blooming flower of metal and light. She placed her palm on the surface. It was warm, like it remembered her. A deep voice filled the room. Female, powerful, calm. Varelian's signature confirmed. Awakening protocol unlocked. Status damaged. 72% systems offline. "What is this place?" one of the prisoners whispered. Rain answered quietly. "This isn't just a ship. This is a Varelian flagship, a royal vessel, a mobile city, a fortress." The walls shifted, revealing long windows that looked into an underground hangar. What they saw made every voice fall silent. A massive structure, dark silver, winged, covered in vines and dust, rested in a deep trench. It looked like a god fallen asleep. It stretched longer than 10 star cruisers. Yet every line of it felt alive. Lyra whispered the ship's name, though she had never heard it before. "Thal-Lazar," the ship responded. "Welcome." "Sovereign Lyra and Seri." "Thal-Zor stands ready." Energy surged across the ceiling, flowing like water through old circuits. Lights blinked to life across the hangar. Dust fell from above as supports trembled. This place had not moved in centuries, but now it began to breathe. Rain leaned closer to Lyra, his voice low. "This ship was hidden under the mine. They built a prison on top of it, hoping no one would ever find what was buried here. But it waited for you." Lyra turned to the crowd. "This ship is more than escape," she said. "It's a symbol, a home, a weapon, a memory." She pointed at the screen showing system failures. "We fix it, we fly it, we take back the stars." One of the older prisoners stepped forward, his skin marked with burn scars. "You want us to fight?" he asked. "You want us to go to war with an empire?" Lyra didn't flinch. "No," she said. "I want you to live free, but freedom is not given. It must be taken." The room was silent again, but the silence was different now. It was not fear. It was fire waiting to rise, suddenly. A sharp beep echoed through the chamber. Rain checked his wrist device and froze. "We've got incoming," he said, "to dread ships in orbit, Empire class." They traced the energy spike. Lyra turned to the ship interface. "Can we fly?" "Primary lift systems, unstable," the ship replied. "Weapons, inactive. AI control." Restricted Rain looked at her. "Then we buy time. We repair what we can." The ship began to shift, opening hangars, exposing underground rooms and power nodes. Dozens of corridors lit up, revealing broken machines. Repair stations. It was a puzzle, and they had hours, maybe less, to make it whole. Lyra assigned groups, Prisoners turned engineers. Fighters, techs, Rain guided. Them using the AI schematics, he moved slowly, holding his side, but his mind was sharp. Every system they reconnected brought the ship closer to life, and Thalazar responded like a beast waking from a coma. Each time Lyra entered a new room, it opened to her. Each time her voice echoed through the halls. The lights glowed brighter, still. Something felt strange. A whisper in the corners of the ship, like someone else was watching, someone else. Inside, later, as she stepped into the old command bridge, the door opened with a soft hiss. The room was untouched, frozen in time. The command chair stood in the center, facing a dark star map. And then a figure appeared, holographic. Blue, regal. It was a Varelian woman, tall, elegant, wearing armor of light. Lyra stepped back. "Who are you?" The figure smiled. "I am what remains of your mother. I am the final echo." Tears burned in Lyra's eyes. "This can't be real." The hologram looked at her gently. "If you are seeing this, it means you survived. It means—" The fire of Ensari was not extinguished. Behind Lyra, the systems glowed fully now. Bridge control. Active, ship wake, complete. Outside, the ground cracked. Dust poured down as engines powered up. The Lazar was rising, and above. In orbit, the Empire was already on its way. Asterisk, the stars above Mine Fortina flickered like nervous eyes. The desert was quiet again. Too quiet, but deep underground, under layers of rock and wreckage. Something ancient had opened its wings. Thalaza, the Varelian ship, was almost alive. Engines pulsed like a heartbeat. The command bridge glowed. With activity, but not everything worked. Not yet. In the control room, Lyra stood at the center. Watching the repair screen, red sections slowly turned amber. Amber turned green, but the ship was still wounded. Estimated launch window. She asked the AI 32 minutes. The voice replied, "Enemy dreadships will arrive in 18. Her chest tightened. They were out of time. Rain appeared beside her, holding a bundle of tools and cables. His shirt was torn, his shoulder freshly bandaged. He looked tired, but focused. "No escape unless we fix the core stabilizers," he said. "They're buried in the lower decks." "I'll go," Lyra said quickly. Rain shook his head. "No. You're the command key if something happens to you. The ship sleeps again. I'll go." She tried to argue, but his eyes stopped her. "There's no time for pride." He said, "Let me do this," before she could answer. An alarm screamed from the bridge. The view screen blinked on, above the planet. 2 massive ships had arrived, black and red, shaped like daggers. Empire dreadships. The AI spoke. "Orbital scans show high-energy cannons charging. Shields offline." Rain looked at her one last time. "Hold the bridge," he said. "I'll hold the dark." Then he vanished down the service tunnel with 2 engineers behind him. Outside, the ground began to rumble. The Empire was not here to talk. They were here to crush the past before it rose again. Lyra turned to the others, former prisoners, now standing like soldiers. Their eyes held fear, but also fire. She stepped up to the command chair. "For every chain we wore," she said, "for every name they erased, this is our last stand." The crew roared in reply, and Thalaza roared with them. The ship's AI rerouted power from dead systems. Energy surged through the spine. Parts of the hull broke free from stone. Metal wings unfolded with ancient grace. But the engines remained still, waiting for the stabilizers, waiting for rain. Meanwhile, in the lower decks, darkness waited. Rain crawled into a shattered chamber. Full of sparks and smoke, the stabilizer core was damaged. Its circuits fried. His 2 engineers worked fast, patching wires, reconnecting flows, power reroute in 60 seconds. One said. Rain nodded. Pulling the final cable, suddenly, a hiss came from the far side. Doors opened. Empire strike units stepped through, black armor, glowing eyes. No words, no mercy. The engineers panicked. Rain stood between them and the enemy. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. He raised his wrist device. "Execute firewall burn," he said. The device glowed red. Then exploded in light. A pulse wave hit the room, blinding and hot. The strike units froze, their armor shorting. But Rain fell to his knees, coughing blood. He had burned the last of the device and a piece of himself above. The lights flickered. Lyra looked at the status panel. "Stabilizers online," the ship announced. "Lift power at 84%, preparing for launch." She smiled. But it faded quickly. The enemy dreadships had locked targets. "Missile launch detected," the AI said. "Impact in 27 seconds. Can we shield it?" She asked. "Negative. Recommend evacuation or immediate launch." Lyra clenched her fists. "We're not leaving anyone behind." She activated the speaker system. "Rain?" she called. "Rain, do you hear me?" Static answered. Then, his voice, weak but clear. "Launch the ship, Lyra. You've already saved us. Let me hold the door." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. There must be another way. But the AI counted down. 10 seconds to impact. Rain's voice came one last time. "Don't mourn me," he said. "Remember why we rose." Then the ship launched. Engines flared. Ancient and beautiful. Stone shattered. Fire poured from beneath. Thalazar rose through the surface. In a column of blue light, the enemy missiles missed by seconds, exploding behind them in clouds of flame. The freed prisoners cheered, cried, held each other. Lyra stood alone on the bridge, watching the world shrink below. Her voice was steady. "Mark that place," she said. "We'll return, and far below." Where darkness now held silence, a single human had made the difference. Not because of strength, but because he believed freedom was worth the pain. The stars looked different from up here. Not because they had changed, but because Lyra had. Thalazar drifted through low orbit, its hull glowing with soft light. Below, the planet spun slowly. Quiet now, with dust still rising from the cracked surface of mine 1-4A, a scar on a world full of silence and secrets. Lyra stood on the bridge, alone. Her hand rested on the glass panel, her reflection staring back behind her. The crew worked once, prisoners, now pioneers. But her thoughts were elsewhere, in the silence of space. She could still hear his voice. "Remember why we rose." Rain was gone. But he had given her everything. A soft chime pulled her back. The ship's AI spoke. "Long-range scan complete. Multiple Imperial outposts identified." She turned slowly, her voice steady. "Mark them. Every prison, every labor camp. Every buried ruin. We burn the chains." One by one, the AI pulsed in reply. "Confirmed." She stepped onto the central platform. The bridge shifted, revealing a circular table glowing with stars. A 3D projection of the Empire's sector. Vast, full of red markers, enemy territory. She reached out, tapped one. A red dot turned yellow, then green. A new path opened. A new future, behind her footsteps, echoed the crew leader. A tall insectoid, named Varek, spoke. "We've made full repairs to the left thrusters," he said. "Engines are ready for hypershift." Lyra nodded, and the people. "Half want to keep running," he admitted. "The other half? They want to follow you." She smiled faintly. "I don't blame the first half, but the second." She looked out the viewport again. "They're the reason I'm still breathing." She turned to the intercom, pressed the COM switch. Her voice echoed across the ship, through every corridor, every chamber. "This is not a speech," she said. "This is a promise. They took our names, our homes, our choices, but we're still here, we're alive, and now "We are not afraid." Her voice hardened. "We don't ask for freedom anymore. We take it." The crew answered with cheers. That shook the air. The ship responded, lights pulsing brighter. The Laza was no longer a sleeping relic. It was reborn, suddenly. A new alert blinked on the command panel. Incoming transmission, unknown source. Lyra raised an eyebrow. From where? The II responded, encrypted human channel, source, unknown quadrant. She tapped the interface. The screen lit up with static, then cleared. A woman's face appeared human. Scar across her left eye, uniform worn and dirty. She spoke fast, serious, tired. "This message is for whoever just woke a Varelian warship. I don't know who you are, but you've started something. The Empire's scrambling, searching, scared. And out here, we're listening." She paused, looked off screen, then leaned closer. "There's more of us," she said. "Not just humans, not just exiles. Whole planets ready to rise. But we need a signal. Be that signal." The transmission ended. Silence returned. But it wasn't heavy this time. It was electric. Lyra stared at the screen. Then at the star map. New markers appeared. Blue this time. Hope Varak looked at her. "Well?" he asked. "What now?" Lyra smiled. "A real one this time. Now?" She said, "Now we light the fire." She gave the command. Plot course to the nearest outpost. Full speed, no more hiding. The engines hummed like a storm, waiting to be unleashed. Below the ship, the last light of the sun caught the surface of Mine 14A. The chains were broken, but the war for freedom had just begun. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, across ships and stations, bunkers and ruins, others looked up. Others watched the sky. They saw a streak of silver fire cutting across the stars, and they knew the Queen had returned, and she was not alone.